8 months ago, I bought my first ever road bike, and I very quickly realised, my goodness, this sport is expensive. I bought a lot of cycling gear, and a lot of the gear I bought has been amazing. Other gear, like this cycling jersey, I kind of wasted a lot of money because the first jersey I bought, awful. So I had to replace it with this, which was also awful. So I had to replace it with this, which was also awful. And then this, nope. Then this, nope. And finally, I ended up with this, which is actually quite good. So in this video, I'm gonna go through all the cycling gear that I'd buy if I started again. So you can learn from my mistakes and avoid buying things as a beginner cyclist that you don't need, and hopefully save yourself a bit of money. Because honestly, and you'll find this out soon if you haven't already, the cycling industry does a fantastic job of making you think that you need the most expensive kit to enjoy riding, when that's, of course, just not the case. So let's start with maybe the most important thing you'll need to buy when you're a beginner cyclist, which is the bike. I bought a Trek Domani SL5 with a carbon frame for about $3,700. Was it necessary? Absolutely not. It was a risk because I didn't even know if I would like cycling in the first place. So imagine, and I know this happens relatively often, you want to get into cycling, you buy an expensive bike, and then you realise, hold on, I don't enjoy this as much as I thought I would. Or maybe life gets in the way and you end up just not riding on it much. So for me, when I bought this bike behind me about 8 months ago, it was a risk, but literally just 2 weeks ago, I completed my first Ironman 70.3. And seriously, I absolutely fell in love with cycling and triathlons in general. When it comes to buying a bike, there are kind of two, I'd say, main things to take into account. Firstly, do you even need a carbon fiber bike? Because honestly, there's not that much difference between an aluminium frame and a carbon frame for beginner cyclists. Although, of course, the cycling industry and bike manufacturers will try to persuade you otherwise. An aluminium frame will be perfectly fine for, I don't know, probably 90% of beginner cyclists. This carbon Trek Domani cost me about $3,700, but the equivalent aluminium frame with slightly lower specs is only $1,300. I say only, $1,300 is still a lot of money, but you can get a really solid second-hand aluminium framed bike for $300 to $600 that, if well maintained, could last you years and years, and you'd probably still go 95% as fast as someone with a fully spec'd out carbon bike. I remember the first time I ever stepped foot into a bike shop and I saw this Trek Madone Project 1 bike in the middle of the shop, and I looked at the price tag and it was $12,000. And next to that bike was a Trek Amonda for $3,000. And to me, they both looked exactly the same. And I was thinking, how is the Madone Project 1 $9,000 more expensive? Like, what kind of wizardry is it hiding that I just don't see? The truth is, for a beginner, you won't actually notice too much difference between a good aluminium bike and a good carbon bike, right? You'll be too busy learning how to shift gears properly, getting comfortable in the drops, and kind of just building up your fitness. The second thing to take into account is budget, right? So if you've got kids, if you've got a mortgage to pay, if your finances are tight, it's really not worth spending thousands of dollars on an expensive bike. I don't have kids, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I live a relatively frugal life outside of cycling, so that's how I justified paying a little bit more for, I'd say, a kind of mid-spec'd Trek Domani. One thing I did get right though was prioritizing comfort. I chose the Domani rather than the Amonda or the Madone because the Domani is built for comfort and endurance, the Amonda is built more for racing, and the Madone is definitely built for racing, so it has a lot more aggressive riding positioning. As a beginner, comfort was my number one priority, and if you're a beginner cyclist, you might also want to prioritize comfort because you want to actually enjoy your rides, not suffer through them because you have excruciating back pain. Now on to the essential accessories. So after I plucked up enough courage to buy my bike, I thought, okay, that's pretty much most of my spending done, right? Wrong. very, very wrong. But let me save you some money, because there are a lot of kind of tips and hacks so you don't actually have to spend too much. So first up, my bike lights. So I have quite a lot of bike lights here, and I have my bike lights turned on all the time whenever I'm riding the bike, even during the day. I just don't see any disadvantage really to having bike lights on all of the time. Maybe in a group ride you'd switch the rear light from flashing to steady so you don't kind of annoy the person behind you. And yes, you have to kind of remember to charge them when you get home, but honestly, it could save your life one day. So I have the Magicshine ALLTY 400 V2, which is right here in front of me. And I also have the Magicshine 200 V3, which I really like using as well. And I mentioned these lights relatively often on this channel because I've reviewed a lot of bike lights, but in terms of price to quality ratio, this is about as good as it gets. They're about $30 each, super high quality, very well built, aluminium or aluminum for my American viewers, and they're really small, so they kind of stay very discreet on my bike. The rear light is really good because it not only has a flashing light pointing backwards, but also illuminates the bike itself with a light going downwards. So there's really no excuse for drivers not to see you at nighttime. I'll drop some affiliate links in the description if you do want to check those out. Now, water bottles and cages. Don't overthink this. I bought some cheap bottles from AliExpress for $6 each and Topeak Ninja cages for about $8. But this is where I made a mistake. I rode, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers using these cheap bottles from AliExpress. But then in one of the group rides, my bottle came loose and fell off the bike, and a friend riding behind me swerved and she ended up in a ditch. So I felt so bad. It was completely my fault, and I've never used these bottles again since that kind of accident. Instead, I bought some other Topeak bottles that lock into the cages far better, which makes sense because they're Topeak bottles and Topeak cages, so you'd have thought that they'd be designed to be used together. But yeah, please learn from my mistake. Make sure your bottles are really tightly locked into your cages. For a bike computer, if you're just starting out, your phone will work fine. You can get a phone mount for about $15 and use apps like Strava or Komoot for navigation and tracking. I eventually bought a Garmin Edge 840 for about $350, but that was only after a few months when I was kind of more confident I really enjoyed cycling. And I just bought my Ironman triathlon ticket, or Ironman 70.3 triathlon ticket. So I knew that I was at least committed for the next 7 or 8 months. So that's why I bought this, and I don't regret it. It's a really good device to have on my bike. It does have its quirks though. It constantly tries to make me go through a tunnel nearby my house where bikes are not allowed. I don't know how to fix that, but it keeps telling me to go there when I can't. But overall, I'd recommend, if you know that you're going to be committed to cycling, a basic bike pump is essential. You can get a decent floor pump for about $30, or a portable one like this one for rides. What I also bought, which I really like, is this Xiaomi electric pump from AliExpress. And it's just easier than having to pump a manual pump. I literally just press a button and it pumps the bike tires up, but that's just me. Also, everything I mentioned in this video, I'll drop affiliate links like this Xiaomi pump in the description below. If you do get this, make sure you get V2, because V2 has the USB-C, whereas V1 has the micro USB port. So those are the main kind of essential bike accessories you'll probably need when you're starting out. Now onto clothing that really matters. And this is where I made probably my most expensive mistakes. So for jerseys, honestly, a $20, $30, $40 jersey from the bike shop bargain bin would probably be fine for most people. I bought some cheap jerseys. This one was $20. It's okay. I bought this for about $35. This is actually a lot better. And then I ended up spending $150 on this. One thing that I do think that's quite important when it comes to jerseys is wearing bright colours. So the clothes in my wardrobe that I wear for everyday clothes, just going about my life, they're almost all dark greys and blacks. But my cycling gear are bright yellows and reds primarily. Cycling is dangerous enough as it is, so you do want to be as visible as possible. Bib shorts, though. Now, this is one piece of cycling clothing worth investing in. So I bought my first kind of mid-priced bib shorts. They were okay, but really quite uncomfortable. These are from Decathlon. They just didn't fit me. I don't know whether they were a size too small. I don't know. And I tried to put up with them for months and months and months, but it just kind of wore me down being in so much discomfort on every ride. So I invested quite a bit more on these MAP bib shorts. These are about $350. Do beginner cyclists need to buy $350 bib shorts? Of course not. But I do think that about $40 to $70 is about the sweet spot before you start getting diminishing returns in terms of a better pair of bibs for every extra dollar you spend. The more expensive MAP bib shorts that I have, they have pockets and they're a completely different experience. The pockets are amazing for gels and keeping my phone. I feel just much more comfortable having my phone in the side pocket rather than the jersey back pocket. But for me, it was worth spending more for bib shorts. But I mean, if you go to the store and you try on some $50, $60 bib shorts and they fit well, I'm sure that you don't need to be spending like $200, $300. For shoes, you don't need to go crazy. So I have these Shimano RC7s. I think I bought them for $160. And they're great, but you can get perfectly good cycling shoes for about $80. The important thing is that they fit you, they're stiff, and they're comfortable. A helmet is obviously non-negotiable. I went with this Trenta MIPS helmet. So the MIPS system is this kind of suspension system in the helmet, and there have been studies that show that this technology does actually work. So it protects your head better than a non-MIPS helmet. At the same time, a budget helmet bought from a reputable store will also work. All helmets being sold from reputable brands have to be certified to a certain standard. So if you spend more for a more expensive helmet, you don't necessarily get extra safety, but they're often lighter, maybe more air vents, maybe better quality materials if you do spend a bit more. Okay, so when I got into cycling, I did not know about AliExpress. I bought all my gear from physical stores and well-known brands, and well, I paid the price. I spent a lot of money, but where and how can you save more money when buying cycling gear? So here's where AliExpress comes in. So I've bought cycling socks, I bought basic tools, I bought bottle cages, phone mounts, and various small accessories from AliExpress and saved hundreds of dollars compared to buying from more expensive brands. For example, I bought some handlebar grips for my mountain bike for AliExpress for $3. Now, the exact same design from Ergon costs $35. Are the Ergon grips slightly better? Yes. Are they 10 times better? Probably not for most people. Wheels are another area where you can save massive amounts of money. So instead of buying $1,000 plus carbon zip wheels like the bike shop suggests, I bought Elitewheels carbon wheels for $350. Are they heavier than the zip? Yes, but they're still a huge upgrade from the aluminium wheels that came with this Trek stock. In fact, I've got a whole video reviewing the Elitewheels carbon wheels. It's by far the most expensive upgrade on my bike, but at the same time, it probably makes the biggest improvement to my bike. You can click on the pop-up banner above to watch that whole video. As for tools, you can start with the basics, right? So you need a multi-tool, tire levers, spare inner tubes, and a portable pump, something like this. You can get all of those kind of small accessories for under $50 on AliExpress, like $3, $4 each. As you get more into the sport, you can then obviously upgrade to nicer tools, but the cheap ones will serve you perfectly well, at least in the beginning. Now, what cycling gear wouldn't I recommend buying from AliExpress? Firstly, helmets. Don't risk your head with a helmet from an unknown brand. Even though they might say it's certified and ticks all the safety regulation boxes, it's still not worth the risk. Fit is also important, so go to a physical store, try the helmet on, and buy from there. You can have an amazing experience on a $500, $600, $700 setup. You really can. Some of the fastest, happiest cyclists I know are riding bikes that cost less than my carbon wheels. They're out there crushing bike races on aluminium bikes with basic components, and they're having just as much fun as anyone else. Getting into cycling is genuinely one of the best decisions I've made in my life, and that's no hyperbole. The fitness benefits, the mental health benefits, the sense of freedom and adventure, it has been incredible. And it's no secret that I love buying cheap cycling gear from AliExpress. I wish I knew about AliExpress when I started out cycling. You can click on this card to watch a video I filmed earlier where I review 15 really good value AliExpress bike upgrades. Alternatively, you can click here to find out the 17 things I wish I knew as a beginner cyclist. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Watch that video right there.